We move to our second panel, Transformation Through Education, that will be moderated by Zarina Skruvala and will attempt to reimagine education as a means for sustainable development. I'd like to invite the first panelist on stage, Anu Aga. Padma Shri awardee Anu Aga served as the chairperson of Thermax Limited, India's leading player in energy and environment management, where she anchored one of the greatest revival stories corporate India has witnessed. Today, she focuses on social causes and is closely associated with the Thermax Foundation. Her area of interest is primary education for the underprivileged, and she is keenly involved with an NGO called Akanksha, which runs 20 schools between Pune and Mumbai, and the Thermax Foundation financially supports 5 of their Pune schools. Anu is also the chair on the board of Teach for India, a movement that attempts to bridge the inequity gap in education and has spread to 7 cities in India. Anu has been very active in various national associations like the Confederation of Indian Industries and has written extensively and given talks on subjects of corporate governance, corporate social responsibility, the role of women, and education. Please join me in welcoming Anu. Our second panelist for this session is Sonam Wangchuk. Sonam has worked in the field of education reform for more than 27 years. He has been instrumental in changing the face of education in the Ladakh region through SECMOL, Students' Educational and Cultural Movement in Ladakh, which aims to bring reform in the government school system. By introducing language-relevant and participative school models, this initiative is responsible for a massive decrease in school dropout rates among Ladakhi children. For students who still failed in their state exams, he founded SECMOL Alternative School Campus, a special school where the admission criteria is failure in exams and not grades. But with the supportive and creative environment of the school, the so-called failures grew to excel in their chosen fields. A mechanical engineer by profession, in order to solve the water crisis facing mountain regions, Sonam invented the ice stupa artificial glacier, which stores the wasting stream waters in winter in the form of a giant ice cone or stupa and releases the water in late spring as they melt. Sonam is the recipient of many awards, including the Rolex Award for Enterprise, the Terra Award for World's Best Earth Buildings, the UNESCO Chair for Earth Architecture for India, and the prestigious Ramon Magsaysay Award, most recently in 2018. Over to you, Zarina.
Thank you. First of all, a very warm welcome to both of you. Both of you have made it from out of Bombay, from Pune, from Leh. Thank you very much. And despite not being too well, Sonam, we're deeply grateful for you to be here. So we'll start off with a little context setting. Gandhiji, as many of you might know, created a new education system which he called Nai Talim, where he said education is not textbook-centric, but life-centric, purposive and productive. Nai Talim sees education for life, through life, and throughout life. Yes? So we begin with the first question to both of you. What is the purpose of education? Gandhiji said, the real difficulty is that people have no idea what education truly is. We assess the value of education in the same manner as we assess the value of land or of shares in the stock market. In a seminal article, Harijan, in 1937, Gandhiji said, by education, I mean an all-round drawing out of the best in child and man, body, mind, and spirit. Literacy itself, he said, is no education. Sonam, Anu, do you resonate with this? And Anu, what do you believe is the purpose of education? This question is for both of you, and we can start with Anu.
I completely resonate with Gandhiji's ideas, and I was very touched by the previous panel, who in a way did our work by saying what education should be. For example, what we heard, that through education we need to accept our flaws and not pretend to be perfect people, because I think only a dead man is a perfect man. You know, so I very often say, I have a lot of shit in me, which I need to accept, and hope over time that shit doesn't smell so badly. If we follow Gandhiji's truth, if we pretend to be perfect, that's the first educational principle which we are breaking about following truth. Or if we look at the mirror and say, I'm perfect, what can we learn for ourselves? The second idea, which, we use our science, technology to create gadgets, we have created internet. But through all that, have we understood ourselves better? Understood people around us better? Or are we self-absorbed with that machine and our children spending hours and hours on it? And that drone that can destroy humanity. So what is the purpose of education? So I think the purpose of education is to create sensitive human beings who will make this world a better place. That is my yardstick. People may create wealth. I don't think wealth creation is bad. But follow Gandhiji's idea of trusteeship model, where you have created wealth, drawing so many things from society, and you give back to the community. So that's another thing. Martin Luther King has said, our children need to be valued not just by their test scores, but by the content of their character. And as Sonam has done, when we clean rice, we throw away the stones. We don't throw away children who fail in exams. Education is inclusive of everyone, not making a difference between intelligent and not intelligent. Unfortunately, when we look for a school, what do we as parents look? What were the 10 standard results? When the higher education schools talk about the perks and pay the students got when they got their first job, and they brag about it, do they ever brag about how they made an impact on the nation? So our values are so education has a huge task to perform. And
Thank you. Thank you, Anu. Sonam, thank you. Over to you for the purpose of education.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I'll start by what I think it is not. And, we were told in childhood that it's the 3 R's, which is what I truly think it is not: reading, writing, and arithmetic, which don't even start with R. So you can imagine the people who propounded this. These are all to do with just the head, whereas education should be awakening of our head with knowledge, information, definitely in all the algebras and physics and so on, but it shouldn't end there. It should go beyond head alone to skilled hands, awakening of our physical body with skills of making, repairing, survival skills and so on. Skilled hands and bright head are great but not enough. They can do a lot of damage, as is happening in the world with these two. It's not complete without awakening of the kind heart, compassionate heart that can feel empathy for all beings, not oneself, and for future, not just for present. When these all aspects of us are awakened, I feel it is a more educated person. Recently, I was speaking to children in a school, and I said, you all, celebrate or mourn about how you did in physics, maths, and so on. But I think the syllabus of life is more than that. If syllabus of life was, apart from head, hands and heart, and suppose it was 33% of the whole syllabus, and now imagine your grandmother or grandfather, who may not even be schooled or literate. In this case, they weren't. And I said, let's give marks to them out of 33. How much would you give them in the field of heart? And they all came up with 30 and so on. And how much would you give with all your great school education? 15, maybe 10. And then I said, okay, now in the hands sector, how much would you give your grandparents? How skilled are they in doing things? They gave high marks. And you, well, we don't do much, so 15, 10. And now in the field of head, they are not stupid. They may not be schooled, but they are. And finally, the scores came, grandparents 75 and us 50. So, even speaking in the language they understand or they are taught at school, ranks and grades. Of course, I didn't want to promote this, but to make them see that only when we are skilled and, have that empathy to take care of nature and the environment and others, are we fully educated.
Thank you so much. Anu, the next question is for you. Anu, you chose to devote your time, your passion, as well as your money, first to Akanksha and then to Teach for India. I think Teach for India is a deeply inspiring model, especially in the light of our topic today, which is leadership for a better world. Basically, Teach for India delivers quality education to children from underprivileged backgrounds, while at the same time serving a dual purpose of creating a leadership of young people who have chosen and been inspired to switch from jobs. These are the brightest minds who have chosen to switch from doing corporate jobs to devote their time to education. So they take 2 years off and they teach children from underprivileged backgrounds. And really, this switching of tracks is something that TFI does so beautifully. Anu, the question is, why this emphasis in creating a new movement of leaders in education? Why is it so important?
Okay. When we usually talk of a leader, we think of a corporate leader who has helped this company to grow and make better profits. But at TFI, we look upon a leader who has helped to bridge the inequity gap in education. Why is this so important? Let me give you 2 surveys, and maybe lots of you know about it, but it doesn't matter. Pratham, which is an NGO, does a survey every 2 years of our rural India in education. And they have found that in language, science, and maths, we are going backwards. We are not improving, but we are going backwards, which is a scary thing for a nation. Second, there was an international survey called PISA some years ago, where 2 of our best states took part, and out of 74 countries that took part, India came second last. Kyrgyzstan was the only country that did worse than us. Now, what did India decide? They said, we will not take part in this survey anymore. Because the questions asked are not relevant to Indians. Now, against this scenario, now you can see how important it is to have leaders who will fight for education inequity. What do? We, as Zarina said, we recruit young fellows and corporate people who have worked in corporate through a very difficult 7% of the people who apply we take. Because we want to make teaching an aspirational program, not something which you take up when you have no other option. So these people spend 2 full years in municipal schools and low-income private schools. Not only do they work in the school, they work with the parents, they work with the community, they impact the values of the students. And if I have do I have time?
Yes, Anu, please.
I'll give you 1 or 2 stories. Saurabh passed out from IIT Delhi, which is a difficult thing to get in, worked for 3 years in a corporate world, joined Teach for India, worked for 2 years, and then worked in a school for another 2 years. Today, he is the head of Akanksha, CEO. He was selected through Egon Zehnder as the best person to lead Akanksha. And he is looking after 21 schools between Mumbai and Pune and impacting the lives of 8,000 students. So this is the impact Saurav has made. If I give you another example, Seema Kamble lived in the slums of Mumbai. She came to Akanksha centers before we started the school model, did her graduation, applied to TFI and got in through that 7% bar. Then she became a teacher and today is the principal of one of the Akanksha schools.
That's fantastic.
So again, the impact. 75% of our fellows stay back in the social sector and they are the best. They could get the best of perks and pay in corporate world. And they impact the lives. If that's not a leader, who is? Tell me. They teach values. Our education is not about only marks and head. Priyanka, one of our students who took part in our musical Maya, was exposed. We take our children to the less privileged, less than they are also. And they were taken to a home for poor, destitute women. Priyanka's father had murdered someone and was in the jail. And the only gift she had from her father was a teddy bear, which she cherished and valued very much. So the second time they went to this old people's home, she took a bar of chocolate for the lady she was visiting. But the lady looked at the teddy bear and wanted that. Priyanka hesitated for a few seconds, but parted with the teddy bear. This is like my giving away half of my wealth. Can you imagine the sacrifice this girl? And she did it effortlessly. I'm sure she has learned a lot of values from others, but I think TFI fellows make a huge impact on her.
Thank you so much. It's a beautiful story. Thank you. Thank you. Sonam. So while Sonam was still a student of engineering in Ladakh, he encountered firsthand how broken the education system was in Ladakh, in the block of Ladakh, in the state of Ladakh. It actually had an astounding 95% failure rate. A 95% failure rate. And we were talking just now, and this along with another reason, but this was also one of the main reasons which made him switch from his engineering career to take up an ongoing and deep engagement with education. The solutions he created helped failure rates in Ladakh drop from 95% to 45% while he worked there, and today it is 25%. Sonam, please share the solutions that you implemented in Ladakh as a whole, and also take us through the reasons and the purpose why you felt the need for your alternative school, Sekmol, and now your alternative university, Hial. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, so how I happened to work with education while I was doing my engineering, partly because as a child, luckily I believe now, I did not have a school in my village with 5 households, So I was spared actually school, and I was left to my mother and to my village to learn from things around. And I was lucky to learn and develop that third edge of empathy and values from my mother. And I think that moved me when I saw that children were failing en masse. I started teaching students to support my own engineering. It was an accident, but that moved me so much thanks to, I think, this that I learned from my mother. Otherwise, I could have made my money and passed on, but I just couldn't do because I saw they were so bright. There was nothing wrong with them. And then I saw there was everything wrong with the system. I mean, imagine children at 12,000 feet in the high Himalayan deserts were memorizing when I visited a classroom. We grow rice with monsoon rains, we grow rice with monsoon rains, we grow rice with monsoon rains. And I asked the teacher, what are they memorizing? She says, this is what is in the books. But we don't grow rice. Yeah, but this is in the books. We don't have monsoon here. This is in the books. And I asked, so what if a child at the end of the year writes, we grow barley with glacial meltwater? She said, wrong answer. He'll get 0 because it's not in the books. So that's what the mockery education had become. And then I, together with other like-minded young people who felt the same, were not so able to express or come forward. We got together, joined forces, and started changing things, starting with changing people's mindset who believed that textbooks come from heavens like holy books, and you can't change them. We used to say, these are meant for good of the people. If it's not doing that, it can change. These are luckily not holy books. So we started changing them to, we grow barley. So very soon the book started changing to what actually happens in the mountains. People started taking ownership of, we organized the people to form village education committees. So there's somebody taking care of government schools. Otherwise, government schools are nobody's schools. And then training or retraining teachers to do education in very child-friendly, humane ways. So these are what we started doing, and you didn't need more. The pass percentage improved, even though in the earlier phase, we didn't have enough teachers from Ladakh, so some would come and many would come on punishment posting to this Siberia of India, and they would come and blame the children. I can understand their state of mind. They would blame the children and blame the air even. They would say, there's not oxygen enough in the air. They can never do maths and physics. But when the pass percentage went from 5 to 55 to 75, at least there was a scientific discovery made that it was not oxygen in the air. Well then, 25% failing is also not acceptable. Why should anybody come out feeling like a failure after spending a precious quarter of your lives in the name of schooling? So we said that these kids are actually not abnormal. They are more normal than the others because our system of schooling is so abnormal for human beings. Never before in human evolution have we learned sitting in classrooms from chalk and talk. We've always learned out in the field, in action, in wild nature, as hunter-gatherers, as settled farmers. We always learned by doing things, applying things, and suddenly for the last 300 years we are packed in rooms and taught, and people who do well are actually abnormal, unusual, than those who don't do well. So we started doing education the way they learn. If they don't learn the way we teach, so they're doing it by doing things, by designing the school themselves. So this school you talked about is designed by the students, built by or with the students, and run by them. And through this process itself, they learn the more important half of the syllabus. And that changes things. And some of these who come as, qualifying as the failures, they do much better than those who didn't fail in life. Yeah. Yeah. So now we are extending it to university level. Why shouldn't young people in their 20s not have things to do and just sit even harder? And they can be so much more productive, effective, engaging with real life and finding solutions. In their 20s, they are capable of changing the world. It's a crime to pack them in a room and grade them on some writing they do on paper. So that's what we are now hoping to do with the Himalayan Institute of Alternatives, Ladakh, which aims to focus on the mountain focus. The second thing we try to say is that education should be very contextual. You can't have the same system for Cherrapunji with all its rains, to the Thar Desert, to the Kerala oceans, to Ladakh. You can't have the same medicine. It will be equality of irrelevance, definitely, but not much more. So we want it contextualized to the mountains, and every other place needs to fine-tune it to the problems of the region and engage young people already so that they are effective the day they leave the university.
What are the courses you're offering at here?
So we're starting with things that matter most to the mountains. For example, applied ecology in the days of climate change, flash floods, droughts. We want to engage young people and learn together with them how we can mitigate these risks and what we can do to the valleys that are damaged by the rains like never before, water shortage, floods, and so on. Similarly, tourism can be great, but often mismanaged and does more damage. So how can we manage it as an empowering thing so that it is distributed to all the people rather than concentrated? Things like these, or sustainable habitats. Very cold mountains with minus 20. One way people respond is leave the mountains and go to big cities, and then no, this is too hot. So too cold to too hot. Instead, use your science, use your learnings to apply to buildings that are made with natural materials like earth you find under your feet. Everyone, rich and poor, and then heat them with sun over your head for all, rich and poor. So how can you live happily in your own context using your education applied?
And also, Sonam, since we have a little time, the ice stupas.
Yeah.
I believe your students helped you to create it and are now sustaining it in a way. If you could just touch on that for maybe 5 minutes or 2 minutes.
Yes, this is a part of applying learnings to solve real life problems. So one of the problems in the mountains, as I said, is water.
Yes.
It's becoming more and more a challenge with the untimely rains or no rains.
Yes.
So this is one thing where we applied our high school geometry and high school science, or even lower science, to solve some of these problems. So what we observed was that actually there was no shortage of water. The streams on which every Ladakhi village is settled has water flowing from the glaciers in all months except in springtime, which is the time when plants need the most, but the flow is the least because it's still cold in the glaciers, and with global warming they're smaller. So spring is when there is very little water. After summer, you wouldn't believe, it's a desert, but it has floods. And the flow continues into winter when nobody farms. So it just goes into the Indus and into the Arabian Sea here. So we said how to optimize and manage this water by freezing the winter water to summer in the form of ice. This is easier said than done because ice melts away in March. And people would laugh if we say this. So we said, how about using some high school science and geometry? If it doesn't stay when it is on the ground, can we put it in shapes like hemispheres or cones, which the sun cannot melt till June or July? Because there's a longer process, but to cut it short, because the sun needs surface area. And in geometry, we all learn certain shapes have low surface area for the volume, and they are spheres, hemispheres, cones. So why not make it in conical shapes, which will not give the sun the surface area it needs, but will give the farmer the volume it needs. So cheating the sun a little bit, tricking it to make it, yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Anu, we're speaking of transformation through education. We're speaking of leadership for a better world. You and your Teach for India CEO, Shaheen Mistry, they've actually developed or designed 3 very beautiful commitments which the fellows make to themselves when they join Teach for India. Anu, could you tell us something about those commitments and also why you felt they were important?
Okay. First commitment is to educational equity. And I've told you how bad our education system is, so this is not difficult to understand. And the privileged children go to private schools and at least academically get good education. I don't think it's a wholesome, good education. But the belief is that every child has a right to quality education. And education is the only thing that can pull them out of poverty. Many of our TFI fellows and alums have become Akanksha principals and teachers. And between TFI and Akanksha, 11 students have been selected by United World College, studied in Singapore, Armenia, and all over. And 4 are studying in the US with full scholarship. So this is a small number, but this is possible even when given an opportunity. TFI focuses only in the cities and in English medium school, which is a very, very small fraction. But we hope our alums move to the villages, the tribal area, and make an impact in vernacular. So this is their commitment to the second commitment is personal transformation. I believe you cannot lead others unless you have learned to lead your own self. You know, you have to earn the right to lead others. And I feel leaders have to work from wisdom, not just from their knowledge and skills. So we talk a lot, we expose them, we take them to different places, and hope they have a lifetime commitment to personal transformation. And the third is commitment to collective action. You know, in all our education, you are taught to be competitive, not share your knowledge with others. Whereas TFI, whatever we do, it's on an open platform. For example, we had to collect lakhs of rupees, or crore maybe, to create an online teacher training program called Firki. And that's an open platform. Anyone can get it. So collaborate not just with our own people, but with the outside world to make things happen. So these are the 3 commitments.
Wonderful. And in your last one, you call it the commitment to collective action, be the change. I believe you also have a very beautiful community outreach program.
Yes,
within
very
that.
much.
Could you tell us about that?
Yes, sure. We believe that a student cannot be influenced unless we sort of influence the entire community. So during school days, on weekends, in summer, they take up a project that will make a difference to the community.
Beautiful.
For example, one girl who was sent abroad by UWC invited 10 of her students from all the world over to come and work in a community.
Wonderful.
So community work is very much an important aspect for the fellows and the students.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Gandhiji deeply believed that the teaching of ethics was a function of the state. The teaching of ethics was a function of the state. Anu, Sonam, do you resonate with this? And if so, how do you suggest we teach ethics in schools? We've touched on bits, but this is very specifically about ethics and values.
You know, I don't know what kind of a state Gandhiji saw when that he suggested that. I would never leave ethics to the state. Never, never. And by that, if you mean municipal schools, I don't blame the teachers. The system is so corrupt that most of them have to pay anywhere from 3 to 5 lakhs to enter the system. With this kind of debt, where do you have the energy to teach ethics? You and I wouldn't have it. So I think I wouldn't leave it to the state at all. I would start with the parents and schools which are specially able to do this. It's a difficult thing, but I mean, if you just see our parliament, which represents our state of government, it is terrible. You wouldn't be proud of it. You wouldn't.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, absolutely. Sonam?
I think a little differently. First of all, I would say that ethics should be a major part of education, especially in the third age. And education should be for the state to do, for equality of education throughout. It is one of the basic necessities. I no longer think our basic necessities are roti, kapra, and makan, food, shelter, and clothing. They were once. Today it is like clean air, clean water, and education. These are basic necessities, and these better be handled by state, because privately they can be very, very messy. Yeah? If people start owning up air, water, and education, because everyone has a right to get a good start in life and an equal start in life. It shouldn't matter where you were born to get a good start in life. And states can handle it. If whole of Scandinavia is considered very progressive in education, it's all state-run education. In our own country, Kendriya Vidyalayas, I think, are the best system. I was lucky to get a part of it. And if it can be done, why not all schools, to give everybody that equal chance? And therefore, I think, of that state education, this can be part. Actually, the reason why you are right in saying I wouldn't leave it to the state of today is perhaps because we didn't have ethics as a part of a sound education system, and because we citizens do not have that ethics, we elect a government for a bottle of rum and whiskey and some rupees. It is because of that not getting the right values early on that we elect a state that we cannot then trust. It's a circular logic, I would say.
Perfect.
Can I just say,
Yes,
Zarin,
of
I
course.
couldn't agree with you more. Ideally, education is a state responsibility, and we should not have private schools. But that's the ideal situation. Today, with so much corruption and not caring in all schools, low-income private schools also, I'm not glorifying them. Today, I'm saying
Yes.
I wouldn't leave it to the state.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. In today's state of the way things are, you wouldn't leave it, but
Yeah.
in an ideal state.
It should be.
And there are
Like
many countries
Finland
in the
is
world.
the best example.
Yes, exactly. Finland, I believe in France, no when your and my children go to the same schools as everybody else, the schools will be totally transformed.
Absolutely.
Yes? So the last question, very much related to this. Today, as we were speaking, the government educates the majority of children in India. Yes? What few practical advices would you give to begin to change the government education system in the country? 5 minutes each.
Okay. You want to go first? Okay. I want to give a story. There was a school where there was a leakage in the toilet, bad leakage. So the municipality which owned the school was told about it, and they did a little patchwork. A few weeks later, there was a worse leak in another toilet, and some patchwork was done. Then the whole corridor collapsed, and some children were hurt. And then they realized the whole building has to come down and restructure. I feel that's what we need to do with our education. Not make little changes, like RT has made enrollment compulsory, and the inputs are very much emphasized. I think on the way we have spoken, and you all spoke earlier, education has to be redone. And for that, we have to face the unions who are not going to take it easily. We will lose vote banks. So we need a government who is really willing to make a huge change. But that is the real way to make a fundamental change. Our 12,000 teacher institutes are mostly owned by politicians in nexus with builders. Because they have rules like you have to have 1 or 2 acres to build. In a city, who can afford it? So sorry for being a little negative, but unless we improve the quality of teachers, if a surgeon or lawyer is not good, people will stop going. But in a municipal school, a teacher is bad, but will continue to teach till she has to retire. That should change. Where a teacher has the greatest impact on a children's life, we don't demand the best.
Absolutely. Teachers are the most essential. I agree. Sonam?
I think in our country, we need to be a little more decided about what we want. For example, we have most of our schools run by government. They are run in the various mother tongues, which is one of the best things to happen. But then you have, for the better off or well off financially, private schools which all run in English. Now, these children in English schools do not get to use the asset that mother tongue can be, this great arsenal of, weapons or whatever, tools that they can use to understand their surroundings and so on. They suffer. And the children in the government schools, they suffer because they don't get attention, because those who can speak up are all in the other schools, and these are schools with children of the voiceless, and nobody speaks for them, nobody in the government has time for them, and they really perform poorly. So both suffer. First thing I would like is that government needs to decide what language we need to go. Either, preferably, I would say, all state schools and private schools, all states, whichever state, should have education in the mother tongue of the state. Marathi in Maharashtra, Tamil in Tamil Nadu, private or government, public. Start in your mother tongue, and you will see that it takes nothing to acquire another language, English or French or whatever. They'll be good in the grasp of the fundamentals, and they'll be good in whatever language you know. Once you have that great grasp, you'll have the confidence to acquire whatever you like. But because of this confusion, we, mix up, and then we don't get anywhere, and that leads to the scores that you mentioned in PISA, I remember. I mean, we are not decided even about which kind of electrical sockets to use. I'm so surprised. I was on a flight. The Indian pins don't fit in anywhere in the world. They don't even fit in the Air India sockets.
The mechanical engineer.
So we have to decide that we are this country and this is ours. The world will make for us and make this kind of pins. We speak these languages as our mother tongues, and we speak this language as our lingua franca, and world will have to adjust. We have to be clear about our education system also in this way, is what I really think.
Wonderful. I think Gandhiji also resonated deeply with the teaching of children in the mother tongue and not in a foreign or any other language for that matter, because it builds confidence and conviction and enables the child for a better future. Thank you, Sonam. Thank you, Anu. It was a wonderful panel. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Anu, Sonam, Zarina, for sharing with us that the role of education far beyond literacy perhaps lies in nurturing a better human being and therefore a better society. So thank you very much. As you exit stage, we have a small token of gratitude for you. Thank you very, very much for being here with us today.